Hello guys, welcome again, and we are on standard 6 communication. So again, let's jump to the questions. Activity 6.1a, choose 5 different types of communication and describe how and when they might be used. So how and when it could be used. So type 1, so we need to this can be your choices here. It's on page 2, verbal communication. So this is when you are speaking to the person. Obviously, when and how it can be used. When a person can hear, so either they get hearing aid or they can normally hear you. So that's where you'll be using your verbal communication. And then also with verbal communication, the language, the appropriate language to use, because some got dialect or other languages, because it's a multicultural environment. It might be the staff or it might be the person you're looking after. So verbal communication. Also with verbal communication, the way you speak, the tone of your voice, that's part of how you communicate to the person. If they're hard of hearing and you're whispering to them, then they won't be able to hear. So that's your first answer there. Second is sign language. This one, if the person is unable to hear you, sign language is a good way. So you can use sign language that are common, or that even us, when we're trying to talk to someone and there's a glass or they're quite far, we do some sign language like cup of tea or a drink. A simple sign language can be used as well for people who are hard of hearing. Next is Makaton. Makaton, you need to be trained to use this one, so it's a proper sign language that they use, and I'm not trained to do that, but that's how I know about it. So with learning disability or other disabilities, they use Makaton to communicate. So you can just search it online or look more about Makaton. The next answer is Braille. This one is specific to blind people who are also trained to read using Braille. Even when you cross this crossing and there's like a stoplight, there's Braille there. If a person is blind, they can feel it. Some of the lifts as well got Braille, so that they can just feel it and then they can press which floor they're going. So yeah, Braille is integrated in our community, but some use this for education, so they're reading using Braille. Another answer would be body language, your posture and the way you are handling yourself can convey meaning to when you're communicating to a person. So some people don't speak, even if they don't hear you as well, they can observe you if they can see, and according to your body posture or your body language, they can understand you, or they can put meaning to it. Another one would be gestures. So when you're communicating, you can your hand can be conveying messages when you are doing this. So you're more accommodating, or by doing some gestures, it encourages the person to talk or to listen. Another one is facial expression. Again, with body language, is focused on body. facial expression is more to your face. If you're approachable, if you're becoming angry, anxious, it can be shown on your facial expression. So that can be another answer. Eye contact is another answer. So when you communicate and you talk to them and you're doing a very good eye contact, it can hold their focus, and they can concentrate more on what you're talking, and it can show your sincerity when you talk to the person with eye contact. There's loads like written communication, visual aids. Those are other things that you can answer here. All right, next, activity 6.1b, use examples from your own workplace to describe how good and poor communication could affect relationships at work. So examples of good communication affecting a work relationship. Good communication is not only you're the one directing or talking to the person, should be two-way, so you need to be a good listener as well. So that's one example. Listen and then answer in a clear, concise, and audible manner. So you don't just communicate and then it's just you that can hear what you're talking. So it should be loud enough, and it should be clear, and then concise meaning when you try to communicate to someone, don't over explain or put lots of words. Just be direct to the point. Like for example, you're asking for a menu. Good communication there would be, instead of asking them 5 types of menu, why not just give them 2 options, and then if they don't have from the 2 options that you just given, then proceed to another options, which is 2 or 3. Then they can easily grasp it, rather than would you like toast with Wix, Rice Krispies, porridge, or cooked breakfast. Then you got already 5 options for them, and then it's overwhelming. But if you ask them, would you like cereal? We've got cornflakes, Rice Krispies, or Weetabix, and then they can just choose among the 3. Then if they don't like, if they still love cereals, then you can tell them we got shredded wheat, and we've got Cocoa Pops, all those things. Right, examples of poor communication affecting a work relationship. So poor communication is when you speak all together, so everyone's talking. Another poor communication is the environment. If there's a loud noise, like the TV is too loud, then it's poor communication. Another is when your body posture or there's no eye contact. It's just like opposite of what we are talking earlier, and then that's a poor communication. And then another poor communication is body posture. If you look like you're not interested to the person, it shows in your body posture, your facial expression. So those can be one example there. Hello guys, so we're back, and it's activity 6.1c. Imagine you are talking to an individual about a change to their care plan. During the conversation, which starts very relaxed, you notice that the person starts getting fidgety and avoiding eye contact. Their body language changes. They turn sideways on their chair so they no longer face you. Now, question number 1. Why is it important that you notice the changes in other person's reactions? So, it is important to observe and look for cues, any changes when you communicate to someone, because one important factor there is attention span, meaning some people can only hold information or can stay focused for certain periods of time. So when you notice that a person becomes a bit fidgety, then there is something wrong. That's why you need to be observant for any changes. So your answer could be, it is important to observe any changes so that you can stay focused with the person when you're communicating with. So the other one is, the other answer could be, it is important to take notice of the changes so that you know that the person is still comfortable or with you. It could mean that they wanted to go to the toilet, but they got a hard time to speak up of how they feel, or it might be they're sitting in the chair and they're not comfortable, that's why they're fidgety and moving away or being restless. Another answer could be, it is important to notice the changes because it might be they're not comfortable with the person they're talking with. It could be they prefer a female staff when communicating on a certain part of their care plan, and then vice versa. If it's a male resident, they wanted to communicate to a male staff. So that can be a factor. Next, why is it important that you respond to the changes in the other person's reaction? So it is important to respond to the changes because that way you will be able to assess what they want. So given the example on the previous question, you will be able to ascertain or assess what the person wants or needs. So the answer here on number 2 is, by responding to the changes, you will know what the person wants or needs. For example, when they're a bit fidgety, you can ask, you're a bit restless, can I know what's causing it? And then they will say, I need the toilet. So they would be able to tell you. If not, you can get some cues. If they're holding their tummy, maybe got stomach ache. If they're moving away, you can assess by asking them, are you not comfortable talking to me about your care plan? Then you can figure out something. So that's why with question number 2, it is important to respond to the changes in the person's reaction to assess what the person needs or wants. Next, activity 6.2a, part 1, use the spider diagram to list 4 ways that can help you to establish an individual's language needs, wishes, and preferences. I think it's in here. We'll find it. It's on page 3, around this area. And the answers to the one is care plan. That can be one answer. So ways that can help me to establish language needs, wishes, and preferences. So reading the care plan, talking to the person, to the resident. So they and this is if they're able to, if they get the capacity. So talking to the person about their wishes, needs, and preferences. Another one, if they're unable, you can speak with the family or the relatives. And then the other one could be speaking to the caregiver or advocate. So it means that if they're new to your workplace, you can contact their previous home or speak to the hospital, the staff like nurses, or if they're from another home, to the staff there, the manager there. It might not, because the other one is relatives, isn't it? The other one would be people that are not related to them but have been taking care of their of them, like manager, previous staff. So those are the answers that we got in this spider diagram. Part 2, describe how each of the above can help you establish an individual's communication needs. So this is like related to your previous answer in the spider diagram. So if we put care plan, so describe how a care plan can help you establish individual. So in the care plan, it will be written there how to communicate to the person. One example is talking to the person on the good side of their ear, like speak on the left side, they can hear better. It will be detailed in that care plan. Also about wishes, needs, and preferences, it will be in there, like what food they love, where they want to sit in the morning, if they want to be in their room, and then later during the day they want to be in the lounge. It will be in there. It's in there as well on what programs they want to watch, or their hobbies, if they like music, they like arts and crafts. It will be in the care plan. Next, we said about relatives, or the individual itself. So sometimes the care plan is so summarized. If you speak to the person, it can be more specific. For example, if they say they love tea on the care plan, but if you talk to them, they will say exactly how they want their cup of tea. For example, they will just say there, it's weak, and I want it hot, or they want it a bit warm, or they want 3 sugar, they want no sugar. Another specifics could be the cup or mug to use. So if you talk to the person, you can get more details than the care plan. Now there would be relatives, as we said earlier. If the person is unable to communicate to you, the relatives could be your best option. So friends and relatives will say, oh, he used to love listening to this kind of music, or he loves to go to the pub. So the kind of drinks that the person wants, so from cider to Guinness, those things you can get it from the relatives. So food, hobbies, likes, etc., you can get those information. And then the last one that we said is if they're from another home, or they're from hospital, you can get some of the information from the staff there, or their advocate, or their caregiver. So it's the same, whatever you're asking the resident or the relatives, you can ask the staff, because they might know what are the needs, preferences of that person, because they took care of that person. Right, I hope that helps for your answer on 6.2. Right, 6.2b, think of the different communication needs, wishes, and preferences that individuals may have. Complete the diagram below to list at least 6 different styles of or methods of communication that could help you when communicating with individuals. An example has been provided for you. So the first example is touch. If we scroll on our workbook, we will find in here the word touch. It's on page 4. The top one is touch, so they've given it as our answer. Then among some of the answers here, you got technological aids, like hearing aids, that can be your answer. Text phones, because we are using text messaging now. Mobile phones, magnifiers, so when they're reading their paper. Another answer could be word or symbol boards. So in like a board, there's word or a symbol, like tea or a picture of the tea. That can be another technological aids for you, that can of what they want. They can just point it out. Speech synthesizers, so this is more high-tech, where whatever they write or type, it will be spoken. What else can be? Pen and paper, a simple pen and paper, they can write it down what they want. um, other devices like laptop, computers, iPad, it can be used as well. Right, so that's more than 6 now. Just refer on page 4, different methods of communication. Move on to the next question. Activity 6.3a and b. Complete the table below to make a list of potential barriers. So barriers to communication is still on page 4. It's written over here. And they provided an answer. Substance misuse, how it can be reduced. So that's the example. And we can put here, the other one is attitude. So when a worker is abrupt due to time limits, not having enough resources, mood, person they are speaking to may feel intimidated or frustrated and not want to communicate. So attitude, this is quite difficult because everyone got their own attitude and coping mechanism, but how it can be reduced, one good way is mindset. So if you come to work, whatever problems you got in your house, put it aside, and then that will translate to your attitude at work, because you'll be in the zone. I'm at my workplace, I need to smile, I need to be at my best behavior, even though something going on in my house. Limited use of technology. So when the technological aids known to be the best way someone communicating are not available, so these are barriers to communication. So how would you reduce? So one example is hearing aid. If the battery needs changing, so change the battery. If it's not working, report it so that a professional can look at it and repair it or do something for that technological aids. Body positioning, that's another answer. That is barrier to communication. So you need to improve your body positioning. Maybe instead of standing over to the person, maybe sit the person up, and then if you can sit down as well and communicate with the person at the level. So another is like your position where the person is facing the other way, you're facing the other way. So, or when you're standing and it's like you're tired, yawning, those kinds of things can be barriers. So if we can avoid it, or one way of saying is to be aware of your body position, that means you will be avoiding a barrier to communication. Emotions, again, this is like translating to attitude. Emotions is when you're undergoing something, speak to your line manager, let it out, speak to your colleagues. Then when you are ready, then back to work, put that emotions aside, and the important thing is you're at work, you are communicating to that person. Sometimes they're also the other way around. It's like called transference, where the patient or resident is emotional and it can transpire to you, so you're there for them. So you need to sympathize and empathize, but you know the limit of the emotion so that you can still work properly. Or as I said, the good thing to do is to also speak to someone like your line manager or your colleagues about the emotions that are building up in you. Another is physical, when someone has physical conditions that create communication difficulties, for example being breathless, not having any teeth, or being in pain. Yeah, we've said this before. So if there's discomfort or something, you can report it to the nurse. Maybe they can give pain meds, or if the person is being breathless, give them time. There's lots of things that you can do. Shut them up. Maybe they're breathless because of their position in bed. If they don't have dentures, then they can be a bit embarrassed or shy to communicate, or you won't be able to understand what they're talking because of those difficulties. Then give them their dentures, support them. Not enough time, which is a big barrier to communication, but there's some solution to it. One is, like in the workplace, it's being divided into sections so that you can give time to the person you're looking after. Another is obviously scheduling. So if you say, I want to speak to this person with a care plan, then it's lunchtime or it's activity time, then you'll be just juggling. But if you schedule it, like when is the best time, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon is best before my dinner, then take that time. It's also convenient for you, convenient for that person. That could be reducing barriers for that barriers to communication. Poor or negative body language, again, it was said already with the body positioning. This one is more focused on your poor and negative body language. So if we can avoid, like, crossing our arm, meaning we're a bit defensive. If we're slouching, meaning that we're not interested with the person, or we're being shy as well, so it shows in your body language. So if we can avoid that. Lack of privacy, there's another one. You won't be able to get a good answer if you're asking a person about their care plan if you're doing it in public, like in the lounge where everyone is there, or by the hallway. So it's best to take them to their room, close the door for privacy, and then speak to them. Or if you got conservatory and there's nobody in there, you can take them there and talk to them, or talk to the relatives in private. So that's it, guys. That's those are your choices, your answers. There can be other answers there, like environmental factor, like noise. Then how do you reduce it? By lowering the TV, closing the door. There's some privacy part, but the other part would be the distraction. That's why you're doing it. Right, next, 6.3c. During any conversation or discussion, you would like to know that you have got your point across to the other person or people, and that they know or understand what you mean. How could you check to make sure that the other person understands what you are saying? So my answer for this one is very simple. Ask the person to repeat or rephrase what you've just said. That way you validated that the person was listening and that the person understands what you're trying to say. So that is a straightforward answer there for this question in 6.3. Ask the person to repeat what you just said. That will ascertain. But also there are other ways of checking if they understood what you've just said. So by asking them open-ended questions, like did you understand what I was just asking to you? Because if sometimes they would just say yes or no, it's a bit vague, but it will already give you some idea by observing how they said yes to you or no, by looking at their facial expression. And then you can follow up the question. Can you explain exactly if you understand what I was asking you? So there's other ways, but the best way is ask the person to repeat what you just said. That way you will know if they're listening and if they understand what you were trying to say. Okay guys, change venue again. So activity 6.3d. Think of an individual or group of individuals in your workplace that you might struggle to communicate with. Make sure you respect confidentiality by not using their name. Who could help you with information, support, or services to communicate more effectively? How could they help? So, the example from my workplace or from my place of work I have chosen is you can just use like room number. Let's say room 1. We don't have room 1, but let's say room 1. And then think of the difficulties, and let's say the person in there got stroke and you can't understand how the person is communicating. Or another example there is that the person got hard of hearing and they struggle as well, or the person got like an attitude or a dry sense of humor, so each time you get to that room you get offended. So those are just examples. So let's focus on you, whoever you've chosen. Just put room number or a description of the person, like female, got stroke or got dementia or something that in your head you know that that's the person you got in mind that you're struggling to communicate with. So I could find information and support or services from. So in here you got lots of choices. One is from your colleagues. So if you're new in that workplace, those who are already in that workplace might know how to communicate well for that person. They say the person got stroke, can't say the words exactly, or person got dementia and they will say, for example, window but they meant toilet. They might say scissors and they just meant like their buzzer or their cup of tea. They can use other words to describe certain things, but those who are already working there for a long time knows exactly what they want. So colleagues, manager, nurses, staff, you can just use that one. Another thing is internet. You can research about dementia, about stroke, and how to communicate effectively with those kinds of residents. Another example is care plan. Those are the things that could help you. Then the next question there, or follow-up question, is this could help me too, to improve yourself on how to understand and how to communicate effectively. This could help me to develop skills. So those people or the care plan, this could help me to widen your knowledge about the person and the person's condition. So there's lots of answers here. It depends on who you're choosing. Then like the person in your mind, then with the follow-up question I could find information and support services from, and then this could help me too. So it's all related, right? Activity 6.4a, in my job role as blank, so you can put there as care worker or healthcare support, carer. Confidentiality means, so confidentiality is straightforward, protecting the person's personal information. But in your job role as a carer or care worker, confidentiality means that you are allowed to share the information to persons who are involved in the care. So the main words there are, confidentiality means I'm bound to disclose information within the people who are involved in the care. It means that if you answer here, you're not allowed to share information. Then what about the kitchen staff? If I'm in the care side, the kitchen staff is asking about the menu of a certain person, because you said you're not allowed. So you are allowed within the people who are involved in the care. So you got domestic, you got kitchen staff. That is just within your workplace. What about if there's a visiting doctor? They will ask for information about the person that they are looking after or taking care. So you are also obliged to share that information. Again, if you just follow the meaning or the definition of confidentiality, where you're not allowed, you're protecting the personal information or data of that individual, then you're not allowed, because that's a doctor from outside your workplace. So confidentiality means you are allowed to share certain information if the person is involved in the care. So if you got physio visiting, they will ask for something about their particular resident that they need to see, or there's an investigation, so the police come and investigate, so you are still obliged to share that information. That is what confidentiality means in your job role. Okay, so activity 6.4b, familiarize yourself with your workplace agreed ways of working in relation to confidentiality. Complete the table below to list legislation and agreed ways of working to maintain confidentiality in your daily routine. So legislation, there are two: Data Protection Act of 1998 and Human Rights Act of 1998. It should be in your, if we are going to scan the workbook, we will find it on page, it's here. It's on page 6, and we're correct. Data Protection Act of 1998, Human Rights Act of 1998. Okay, those are your legislation. So with agreed ways of working, we've got care plan. So it states there about the individual, and also you've got policies and procedures, and in policies and procedures it's written there about like health and safety, about communication, about confidentiality. It's all in there. Okay, so that's your answer. 6.4c, at times you may come across situations where you need to share confidential information even if the individual doesn't want you to. Give 3 examples of situations that might happen in your workplace where information might need to be passed on to other key people. Example number 1 is when a person is likely to harm others. I think it's let's find it. It's on the last page. It's page 7. Person is likely to harm themselves, that's 1, or person is likely to harm others, which involve a serious crime. Another example is your safety is placed at risk. And then last is a child or vulnerable adult has suffered or is at risk of suffering significant harm. So those are your options. It's on page 7 and it's over here. Alright? Last question, activity 6.4d. Imagine one of the situations you have described in the last task happens whilst you are on duty. Who could you ask for advice and support about confidentiality, and how would they be able to help you? So people I could ask, obviously number 1 there is, if you follow the chain of command, it's your immediate line supervisor. So if you got senior staff, you can talk to them, you can talk to the nurses, you can talk to your clinical coordinator. If you're in the kitchen or domestic, you got your head of your department, so head of the domestic, head of the kitchen. And obviously if you want to go a bit higher to that, then you got the deputy, you got the manager, you got the operations manager. So those are the people you could ask to help you with regards to the situation. So they could help me with So they could help me with advice and support, because one, with your just senior staff, for example, they got more experience and they're trained already. They know how to deal with the situation. Obviously, if you're not comfortable or they're not available, you can go to the nurses who's more knowledgeable, especially they're in charge of the shift. And you can talk to them and seek help from them or advice regarding confidentiality, etc. And then if they're not available, or let's say they're giving medication, you can go to your line manager or immediate supervisor, like the head of your department, or you can speak to the deputy. And then as I said before, they got more knowledge, they're trained, and they can direct you as well for other advice and support. That's standard 6.